Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Doctor Who, as well as the mid-season finale of Charmed. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I had to say about the season finale of Doctor Who, you can skip to what I had to say about the mid-season finale of Charmed. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is the season finale of Doctor Who. A great season finale with a lot going down. So it's very interesting because that whole thing at the beginning with the Ox, like I wasn't sure what their whole situation was, Andinian and Delph, but then it's like, okay, so what is that going to turn into? And then something popped up. It never crossed my mind to think, oh, Tim Shaw is back, which I should have figured as much because it's like all this seemed like it was going to potentially circle back to him. It's kind of interesting because it's like only this and the first episode are directly connected, like as a story arc type of situation. But then, but then again, like those robots show up again and they showed up in Ghost Monument, so I guess there's the connection there. But more so than anything, that's just representing like the Stenzar's like realm of knowledge. That's what he built all that from, was from their knowledge, what his people know. So I guess that's another connection. But it's just kind of interesting to me because usually I feel like there's at least like bits and pieces throughout the season kind of leading up to this, but maybe there were, and I'll probably have to go back in retrospect and be like, all right, there's this, and this. But interestingly enough, it seems like the main point of this entire season seemed like it was more like story development for everyone rather than like in this overarching plot. It was more like, oh, here's story for this person, this story for this person. It's kind of interesting because this is coming right after Graham had his meeting with the fake Grace last episode, and now he's got to meet the dude, the thing that killed Grace in the first place. And he tried straight from the beginning to tell the doctor, I love this adventure we've been on, but I'm gonna kill that thing. And then the doctor's like, no, you can't, because if you do that, you're just gonna be just like him. And it's like, if you do that, there's no traveling with it anymore. But for him, it's like he feels like it's something he has to do. Even him, he has that conversation with Ryan. It's like, I need to do this. Your Graham was a kind person, but the fact of the matter is it's very tough. She's tougher to both you and me, and even she would be telling me to put this thing down because it's like, because we let this thing go, it ended up creating this situation right now, which is understandable. I think that's a very nice element in certain things like this because it's like when you deal with people who don't typically kill their villains like the Doctor does, the fact of the matter is it always leaves room for them to come back. Which, I mean, storytelling wise is a good thing because it's like, oh, you can always do more of a villain, but at the same time, it is a situation of like anything that they do, it always turns into that hero conundrum of like, are you responsible for all that they've done? Because Tim Shaw goes as far as telling the Doctor, it's like, oh no, I only got here because you sent me here with that DNA bomb still inside me. It was practically going to kill me. To be fair, the Doctor was trying to send him back home, but I guess it's just kind of like, his device was a little messed up at the time and she had messed with it. So it, just like the TARDIS kind of takes her where she needs to be, it doesn't always seem like she's in control of where she's going. I guess the device kind of wasn't really fixated because she meant to send him back to his people. So, but he's out there thanking her and everything because it's like if it wasn't for her, he wouldn't be here. He was trying to be a leader and now he's ruling as a god. Because the sad thing about it is Andinian believed Tim Shaw to be the creator, because it's kind of interesting because if you're familiar with Darksiders, the video game, it kind of reminds me of that where it's like, oh, we have creators, in this case the Ox being like makers, and then they all have faith in the one all true creator. So it's kind of a similar thing because in Darksiders there's like makers and then there's the creator. So I just think that's kind of an interesting thing because it seems like they're creators on their own because it's like they can basically shape the universe with just their mind, which is like, wow, those guys are crazy powerful. But it's almost sad because it's like they kind of have blind faith because it's kind of like, because even Delph was saying at the beginning of the episode, is like, the fact of the matter is I feel like I know less after our training, but it's kind of like that's the point. The point is the more you learn, it's to make you realize the less you actually know, which is a very good thing to kind of go by. But it's supposed to be just purely by going by faith, and it's kind of interesting because it's almost like you're blinded by your faith because you're so sure that this person's the creator. The only reason why he was able to pretend like he was is because the Stenzar have such extensive research of like so much out there, so he can use all that knowledge of his people to make it seem like he's greater than what he is. And Andinian didn't agree with everything he was doing, but she went along with it because it's like, it's our purpose, to go out there and find the creator, and this is the creator's will, so we must must bend to it. So, because it turns out the little material they've been carrying around is a condensed planet. He's basically turned, in particular, he referenced it being planets that went against the Stenzar. So, because all this was for him was revenge, and the final planet he was going after was Earth. I doubt it was the final planet, but he definitely wanted to get it, especially because the Doctor and him came face to face and stuff like that. So, can't also overlook the fact of the matter is Peltraki, the guy they met, played by Mark Addy. I was like, what? You know, it's kind of interesting because, like, I think the first thing I ever saw Mark Addy in, I mean, in retrospect, I'm pretty sure it was A Knight's Tale. But other than that, it's like, I don't think I realized who he was at the time, but it was like a sitcom he's in the mid 2000s called, I think it's Still Standing. It's been years, but I'm pretty sure that's it. Which I did not know. He's not, like, it wasn't till years later. I don't know what he is exactly. I think he's European. I'm saying that because, like, I think he's British, but he could be something else. Which is just so interesting to me because it's like the first thing I've like vividly recognized him as, like, oh yeah, he's in Still Standing as an American. So it just kind of, which is interesting because I feel like I don't really see that a lot. Someone, at least I think he's British. I could be 100% wrong about that. I don't know. Nevertheless, because I'm fairly certain didn't he have a British accent in A Knight's Tale? I think he's even popped up in Game of Thrones, if I remember correctly. I haven't watched the show, but I could have sworn someone pointed out the fact that he was in it at one point in time. Maybe it was something else. I don't remember. So that was just pretty cool on its own. It was kind of interesting because when they first meet him, his mind's a little scattered and stuff like that. I'm like, what's going on? And the fact that he forgot the Doctor, even though they just had like a conversation like a few seconds ago, I'm like, oh man, that's bad. Like, what happened to him? It's like, right, the planet they're on, the title of this episode, I'm not even going to like attempt to say that again. Basically, it translates to was it the disintegration of the soul or something like that? But basically, there's an energy field around a planet that makes it so it messes with your mind and plays tricks on it, which is interesting because it doesn't affect Endymion or Delph. I guess because being as powerful as they are, it just doesn't resonate with them. Apparently, because they had walked on a planet for like a long time, because even Delph references it later on, like he'd been walking for like decades, you know? So it's just kind of interesting. I mean, I guess because it kind of bounces off of them. I guess especially with the way their mind works, it wouldn't be affected. So, but I love when it's all said and done, when it came to like Tim Shaw and Graham, that whole conversation, because it's like, oh, you're going to try and stop me. You're not a warrior. And Graham is kind of like, you're right, I'm not. Because there's that whole conversation between Graham and Ryan that I really like, where it's just kind of like, Graham always talked about being, you know, be a better man. And that whole thing of him being like, nah, don't do this. Like Ryan's like, don't do it. And Graham's like, what do you even care? You told me I wasn't good enough to marry your Graham. And he's like, oh, come on. I told you that like a long time ago, Granddad. And he's like, well, I had to wait a long time to hear that. And I love Ryan being like, you know, you're my family. I love you. And then he looks away and Graham looks at him like, what did you just say? He's like, I'm not going to say it again. Don't pretend like you didn't hear me. I was like, oh. That's so nice that they got to where they are right now. And I think that was enough to kind of push Graham from not doing it. I do love that he ended up shooting him in the foot. And Ryan's like, you shot me. It's like, no, only in the foot. I just did it to shut him up. Oh, please don't tell the Doctor. She'll be livid. I love that. But instead of killing him, they simply locked him up and it's like, while you're contemplating your eternity here, we want you to remember one name. And they look to each other and say at the same time, Grace. And I'm like, that's nice. Because I like that aspect, because it's the whole aspect of Doctor Who being like, there is another way. Like, you know, because it's like, it's that whole thing about like, because I was curious to see whether or not they would actually do it. I don't know, because I was wondering like if they would actually make Graham do it or not. But it's like, no, he didn't, luckily enough. Because it's like, once you do that, like, there's no going back from that, you know? Because once again, he'd never be able to travel with him again, because the Doctor wouldn't want to roll with him, you know, knowing that he did that. But I thought that was pretty nice. I also love that later on the Doctor being like, you're the strongest person I know, Graham. Well, one of the few strongest people I know, for him doing that. So I thought that was kind of pretty nice. Because the Doctor was kind of in a similar situation too, because it's like, okay, so if I try to just disconnect Endymion or Delph, it could end up killing both of them. But if I don't, the planet's going to be condensed down. While also we have the problem of the planets that are already condensed breaking, you know, because Tim Shaw didn't want to listen to her because he thought she was bluffing, but the fact didn't matter. He's so sure that he knows everything, and just, I love the Doctor being like, oh, geez, I hate people like that. But when it comes down to it, she was able to free them, kind of made Endymion finally see the truth behind everything, what they were doing. It's like, no creator would ask you to do something terrible like this. It's like jeopardizing so many lives like that. And then ultimately using a combination of Stenzar technology, the Aux, as well as the TARDIS, all, kind of taking the best parts of everything to make this plan work, to put all the planets back to where they were. I thought that was kind of ingenious how that was operated, like using Delph and Endymion, like Delph like touching like the circuits or whatever, and his memory knowing exactly where each one of the planets was, and Endymion all working together in tandem to put them back. And luckily it worked. I was kind of scared if it was going to kill anybody in any, but luckily it didn't. So I'm surprised that element didn't come up more in the episode than it did. Like, I meant the whole like messing with your mind a little bit. It came up a little bit for the Doctor. I feel like out of anyone it would probably take a little bit longer. Just like having lived for such a long time in your mind, just kind of being as massive as it is, I feel like it would. But it's like, I'm surprised that element didn't come up more, and especially because they made such a point not to take it off. But I guess that was kind of foreshadowing to, we're gonna have to take it off so that we could like block the signal between Endymion and Delph and stop them from being used as a weapon to condense down a planet. Because it's interesting, because for him it's like, apparently this is what his people have always been aiming for. Like, putting people as trophies was just the beginning step, because their ultimate step was always to do it for planets that they've conquered, but they could never, their technology wouldn't allow them. But now that he uses the Stenzar technology with Endymion and Delph, he was able to make it happen. Like I said, because it's just him just being just a douche, just kind of like, oh, we're conquerors, we rule people. I'm curious, will we see any more from them? We might not necessarily be Tim Shaw, but we might see more from his people in the future. Either way, I'm kind of glad that like everything like nicely ended, because the whole battlefield and everything was all connected to him, because everyone nearby found out he was making a weapon to do what he's doing, and that's why so many people came to try and stop him, but so many died, and Peltreki and his people, his group, were the last ones to come and try and stop him. It's sad he lost a crew member along the way, but they were able to save the other two, as well as other dozens of people that Tim Shaw had captured. Now trapped in the shrine that he had the Oaks build for him. Because it's interesting, because I saw Endymion and I was like, wow, she hasn't aged either. I was like, you must have a extremely long lifespan. The Doctor was talking like they can live for like, I guess, thousands of years. I mean, it has been like 3,407 years. I love the Doctor being like, yeah, I bet you that 7 years was kind of dragging on a bit, wasn't it? It does make you wonder, what is the next step for them? Obviously, like, they were talking, like, Delph was like, no, we have to go out there, and find a new home, because for her, it's like, and Denny was kind of like, we have to stay here, and wait for the creator, the true creator. But for him, it's like, there's so much out there we have to learn about. And the Doctor being like, oh, that's the universe, keep the faith and also keep going, because the universe will always find a way to kind of surprise you constantly, which she knows. There's always so much to it. I mean, especially after her discovery last episode about that universe/entity that couldn't be a part of our universe, that whole thing. So kind of a very nice, positive, 100% way to kind of like end off the season, interestingly enough. I mean, because usually in some aspects, not all, but a few seasons tend to end off on cliffhangers in certain regards, but I feel like not everything kind of had a like nice resolution to it. Like I said, it kind of came back full circle by taking out Tim Shaw. So, but like I said, there's still potential for him or any of his people, the Stenzar, to come back in some shape or form. Plus, there's a lot of other stuff that's come up this season too that wasn't really dealt with. In particular, in the Ghost Monument episode, I like that, because it was like, oh yeah, Tim Shaw has a shrine, but I have a ghost monument. But those things, those weapon things that were telling the Doctor some stuff about herself, she's like, wait, what are you talking about? It's like, oh, you don't even know what you don't know, essentially. So it seems like that's kind of a hanging storyline that's still left open. But I feel like everything else this season was kind of left pretty much like closed, like in certain regards. So I'm curious to see, obviously that's the only mystery I feel like is still hanging on from there. So that seems like there's going to be something we could see going forward potentially. If you aren't aware, they have renewed this for a 12th season / series. If I remember what I was reading a a little while ago, they had already started started production on the next season/series in November. Apparently it won't be coming out until early 2020, which is interesting. I feel like subsequently it seems like it's gotten bigger and bigger, the space between seasons, like as the series is going on. But I don't know. Maybe that's just my imagination. But I in some regards, but I feel like it's happened more and more with each season that's passed recently. I think 9 to 10 might be the one I noticed the most, but it probably had happened prior to then too. It's just like that's the last time I remember was like 9 to 10, where it was a good chunk of time, and obviously 10 to now has been a chunk of time too. So, but also do note, if you didn't catch it, there will be a episode coming out on the 1st of January, New Year's Day, because there's no Christmas episode this year. I'm not really sure why they did that. I mean, I guess like them having a New Year's Day episode kind of coincides with that. So that, just keep that in mind. I think that will be kind of like a, determination like of what we can kind of get a feel for going forward into the next season. Like it all depends on how that episode plays out, what actually goes down, how it ends will kind of determine a lot of going forward. In general, I've really loved this season. Like I said, it feels a little different. I guess it's because we're dealing with like such a big group of like 4 that, we're getting to know the Doctor a little bit while also learning a lot about each of the companions in this case, because usually it's 1, maybe 2 at most, but usually it's like 1 main companion that the series/season kind of focuses on to get, they might have like some overarching storylines in some regards, but obviously not to the extent like this season. Like I said, it was more kind of like a character driven story arc this season. At least that's how I feel about it. So like I said, I'm very excited to see what's in store for the New Year's Day episode, but also like what we could, see in season/series 12. We will be waiting a while, but I'll be anxiously waiting to see what happens. And now moving on to the mid-season finale of Charmed. A great episode. A lot of stuff went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, obviously it's like the holiday season and stuff like that. They're getting prepared because like Maggie's, like her and Mel's dad is coming home. Apparently he's been in Japan from work for like the past year, which is interesting because obviously this is like the first time we've really even heard him really brought up that much. And it's kind of interesting seeing the dynamics in comparison. Like Mel is just kind of whatever about their dad, but Maggie's the one that's super excited because they have very different perspectives. Because maybe it's just because of Mel being the elder sister, she probably realized a lot more, and she realized quickly. I mean, she's probably like the maturest of the sisters, so she probably kind of had no choice but to really kind of grow up fast in some regards. But in the case of their dad, it's like her dad flakes a lot, and he doesn't want Maggie to be heartbroken about. But Maggie's very defensive of him, and it's like, no, like Dad left during my 5th birthday party because him and Mom broke up, and he didn't want it to ruin my day for it. And it's like, no, he just simply left Mom. It's kind of Mel's perspective, and so it's that kind of back and forth, and that adds a very interesting element to the whole situation, is that dynamic they all both have with their dads. What's also interesting is kind of talking about the familial side of things. We end up learning that Wagner, who works at where Macy works, that's Parker's mom, which is like, maybe they hinted at it with names and stuff like that, but I didn't realize that until just now. I mean, at least it's our first time seeing them interact and stuff like that. And so for her, it's like, okay, you need to take this amulet and drain the Charwin's power because it can be fashioned into a cure for you, but it will basically make him fully demon. It will burn away essentially his human side. But he's like, no, what about Maggie? But for his mom, it's like, no. You're my only concern. The fact of the matter is, yes, you might be a demon like your dad and your bro, which I'm not too happy about, but at the very least, you'll be alive, and there'll be plenty other girls, so do this to save your own life. And obviously, it brings that complication of Parker not wanting to cross that line, because there is a part of him that is afraid of losing Maggie, but at the same time, it's like, hey, like, this is going to save my life. And at the end of the day, it's not going to hurt them. It's only just going to drain their powers for him to make a cure. So it's not, I guess, that's kind of eased his mind to some small extent. But that's all happening. I gotta love that like so much converged on like, the Vera house hold at this point in time, because it's like you have Parker coming over, you had the whole situation with their dad, you had Galvin coming over. Apparently he got hit by a drunk driver, but it's like, is that part of the mark trying to protect him from Macy, or was that just pure coincidence? Who knows? They try to kiss under the mistletoe, which Macy was kind of reluctant, but she was like, okay, I'll do it. And just when she's about to kiss him, he falls back and hurts himself again. So it's like, it's hard to say what's coincidence. Because Macy's automatically going to attribute everything to being like, it has to be me. It's all bad luck because of me. The mark is trying to protect him from me. But truth be told, it could all literally just be dumb luck. Maybe. I don't know. It reacts to her and she can see it, but I don't think that necessarily means that she has evil intent, but maybe it senses something in her. Maybe there is something in her that's evil. We don't know. But a lot of stuff kind of goes along with that, because Parker and Galvin shake hands, like the mark activates and it kind of makes him winces a little, and Mel and Macy see that and they're like, whoa, that must mean Parker's a demon. And that turns into a whole thing of like, well, do we tell Maggie? Because I know we can't tell Maggie unless we're absolutely sure, because the last thing we need to do is tell her that her boyfriend's a demon. Macy gets knocked out. I love the whole, like, when Hunter knocks her out and pretends to be her in that whole situation. He's like, I can't wait to spend Christmas with you guys, my sister. He's like, no, I gotta work on it. And he uses the line on Mel, and she's like, oh. And the moment her back was turned, he was just kind of making faces like, ugh, I didn't say that right. I was kind of, he's like, I should have said that better. Like, just the way he's acting as Macy, I thought was kind of neat. But it seems like he ended up getting a spell to remove the protection seal from him, because he was like, as Macy, he was cuddling up towards Galvin. It was more so to test it out, but it still was a little bit awkward just because of that whole situation. So that in itself speaks volumes, because even though we don't really see it, that means that him and Macy can get closer to each other. That also means, sadly, Galvin is unprotected from anything from in the future. So I guess Macy doesn't have to worry about any dumb luck stuff. Like, if anything does happen going forward, it's simply just going to be a coincidence. It's not going to be because of Macy, but in this, like I said, this does open him up to any other supernatural potential. So there's that. But nevertheless, Mel tries to tell Maggie, but Maggie didn't want to listen. Because in Maggie's mind, it's like, no. I've read his mind for the past couple weeks. Obviously, I would know if he was a demon. That's stupid for you to even... It's just because, for her, it's just kind of like, it's... Because Mel had already said it, like, yeah, Maggie already thinks I disapprove of her boyfriend, like, kind of her love life. To be fair, like, when you think about it, like, Mel kind of disapproves kind of a lot of stuff that Maggie's done in the past, like, even the whole Kappa situation. But she grew to see, like, oh, how important it was for Maggie and everything. But... Maggie will immediately just attribute it to that. It's like, oh, you don't like any choices I made. Just like, oh, do you don't like this guy? It's like, oh, you think you're right. You know it all. And it's like, oh, turns out she was right about the dad situation, because he ended up bailing. So, and Parker ended up pulling the necklace off before it had fully charged, because the moment he took it off, it went back to white, meaning it hadn't fully sucked up all of the Charmed One's energy, because Maggie believed in him and everything, and he didn't want to hurt her because he legitimately loves her. And so that's a complicated situation. It's kind of forced to come out when Hunter gets revealed and he attacks. And interestingly enough, Parker stands up and holds him back so he doesn't hurt Maggie, kind of showing you how much he cares, even revealing himself to be a demon. And then Mel ended up summoning the crows to end up fighting. She didn't do it on purpose. It was just kind of like the new tattoo she got from the Sarcana ended up kind of acting like a... oh, come help, like, things are going down. So, well, it's interesting. I'm curious, like, how powerful they can be, because it seemed like they hurt Hunter quite a bit, but beyond that, I don't... because it always shows that he's a very powerful demon, because even, like, Mel can't freeze time around him for too long, because he ends up fighting his way through it, just showing you how powerful he is. But he ends up leaving because of the crow attacks, and then Maggie and Parker go, like, he pulls her away from the others, and it's like, because you can, the sad thing is, like, Parker legitimately pulled away from this plan, because for him it's like, no, like, I do love you. He even crushes the amulet, because it's like, that amulet was the key to saving his own life. But just to prove to Maggie, like, she doesn't know that, but to prove his point, he just crushed it. She doesn't know that he legitimately needs that, because he isn't faking being sick. He legitimately is sick because of this whole situation. And then, but for Maggie, it's like, it doesn't matter. Because for her, it's like, how can I say if anything between us is real? Because it's like, you've been manipulating me the entire time. The fact that matters, anytime I read your thoughts with my abilities, was that just you manipulating me? So it's like, it's hard to say what was real and what was fake, even though Parker's feelings for her were legitimate. Because it's something Parker had talked about earlier too, where it's kind of like, he was tired of like always like, his family always making decisions for him. It's like, what about me? Shouldn't I be able to make my own decisions? I want people to listen to me. He's not going to get his brother to listen. He's not going to get his dad to listen. Like, if anyone was going to listen, it probably might be his brother. But even then, his brother's not going to get... His brother wants him to be a full demon. It's like, oh, you'll be fully embraced now, brother. But his mom might listen. But even then, like, we now see, like, even she wouldn't listen to him. Because it's like, it's not about what I want. It's what everyone else wants. It's like, yeah, they love him and everything. Well... His brother and his mom, the dad situation, that's a situation all on its own. But for him, it's just kind of like, shouldn't what I want matter? And in his eyes, it feels like it doesn't when in comparison to what everyone else wants. Because it turns out this whole thing was a plan, because Parker is meant to become the Source. The Source is someone who's born, who is half demon, half human. Which, to be fair, maybe you might be seeing that happen for Macy. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting that whole situation of like, oh, so I get the moment he becomes full demon, then he'd become a perfect vessel for the source of all evil. Don't know how that's really going to happen and stuff like that. Because I would assume they will still need a herald of the Harbinger to like bring that forth, because it's supposed to be like a sign for the source of all evil. So it's like, well, they would still need to open it from the spell that the Charmed Ones cast on it and everything. So maybe that's no longer needed. The moment Parker became a full demon, maybe then it switch over. Which I guess in his eyes, that's the only reason why he's ever kept Parker around their dad, is because it's like, oh, I know that I can be the one who's the father of the source of all evil, essentially. But Parker never wanted that. I mean, to be fair, he never knew until Hunter told him, but it's like, that's still not what he wants. And even at the end of it all, when Mel was trying to explain things to Maggie, it's like, hey, he's half demon, half human. Maybe that human side of him actually does love you. And it's like, hey, you know, the whole conversation, like, he did, like, fight his brother to protect you. So I think that speaks volumes. But, you know, for Maggie, it's like, no, you don't believe that. The fact of the matter is, you're just saying that now. And Mel kind of admitted, yeah, she kind of was just trying to make Maggie feel better. But, I mean, I think even if she is just saying that, there is still truth to it. But the sad thing is, Maggie was talking about the fact is, she will not be so... Because for Macy... For Mel... Maggie has a big heart. She wears a heart on her sleeve, essentially. She's a very trusting person, and she doesn't want Maggie to end up getting her heart broken because of that, you know. And she kind of gets it doubly broken this episode because of the whole Parker situation, but also because of their dad. But Maggie said, like, oh, she's not going to be so trusting of people going forward. Now, I'm curious what's that kind of effect going to have on her, and her abilities, considering her being an empath and all that stuff. Like, I think it kind of goes with the territory of her being very trusting of people like that. Is it going to have minor effects, or will it have full-on effect? It depends on how Maggie handles this situation going forward. We might even see kind of a shift in her personality and just who she is. Because it's kind of similar to what happened to Phoebe. Like, the moment Phoebe's love life kind of got out of whack, she was kind of out of whack. You know, it definitely, like, your emotional state does affect your ability. So we might be seeing it affect Maggie's ability. That Maggie might not even try and trust people unless she can get in her head. And even then, she'll probably try and push deeper and deeper to know whether or not, because she might not even trust her abilities going forward, because it might be like, well, this person could be lying to me too. So we might see her kind of develop trust issues going forward. You know, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see what they end up doing with that. All the while, you know, you had Mel getting in deeper with the Sarkana and ends up seeing at the ceremony where they're introducing her as a sister that all these crows fly around. It's like there were crows the night that her mom died, plus her wounds were similar to Jada's ability. But then later on, it's like, oh yeah, those crows, yeah, we tried to send them to check on your mom, but they failed. And it's like, wait, what? Yeah, whoever killed your mom was pretty powerful. And it, like, immediately it seems like winking and nodded to the fact is that they are going to go, like, it seems like Jada might have a thing for Mel. She says it's like, oh, we've got plans for you, but the fact that I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess it's like having a charmed one on your side is a powerful thing anyway. Maybe it's just who Mel is personality-wise. I mean, they probably had their eyes out on all of the charmed ones, but like Mel's the one that they probably feel like clicks with them the most. So that's a complicated thing on its own. I'm starting to think, whoever killed Mel's and, Maggie's mom, Marisol, like, it might either be someone from the elder side of things. It could potentially be that, or it could be Alistair or Hunter. I'm thinking more so Alistair, potentially. I don't know. Because obviously there's a lot that's not being told to the Charmers, because we found out about the whole situation with Charity's sister. Last episode, that was kind of being hinted at, so it's like that's still an element. So either Charity's lying to everyone about that, or maybe, like I brought up before, maybe Harry's in the dark, maybe he's not. I don't know. But I'm very interested to see what the Sarkana really has up their sleeve. Like, the question then becomes, like, are they really a dangerous group? Are they as kind of fanatic as the elders, in particular Charity and Harry, make them out to be? Or is there a lot more shade of gray when it comes to that group? We'll kind of have to wait and see. But when it was all said and done, Hunter came back, but so did Parker, and he uses the staff to open up a portal that is apparently leading to Tartarus, which is interesting. I guess, because I guess that's made from the same material as the scythe to some degree. I guess maybe there's certain magical items that can open that pathway. And Hunter gets dragged into. I was thinking Parker was going to sacrifice himself, grab onto Hunter, and both fall in there. I did not expect him to grab Harry like he did. I was kind of wondering, like, I saw Harry getting closer, but I was like, maybe Parker will push Hunter in with himself at the last second. But it's like, nope, Harry got dragged in. So I think the staff got pulled in too, didn't it? So, and we already know Mel potentially broke the piece of the scythe she got, or destroyed it. So it's like, okay, so there's no way to open the path that way. Not unless she had lied to everyone about it and actually secretly has it. So there's that. What's also interesting is that they're stuck there with Parker after all of this situation too. So that's definitely going to be even more of a complicated situation. I'm curious to see what ends up happening. Is he going to actually stick around and help them, like fill in a lot of blanks about what's going on? Oh, we can't also forget the fact is, a little singer at the end, Galvin saw everything. It's like, what the hell? So it's like, okay, we can't have a human knowing the truth and everything like that. So eventually the elders are going to have to get involved and wipe his memories. But it'd be kind of interesting because it's like, okay, so it's not going to be Nico, Mel's girlfriend, that knows the truth, but Galvin's going to be the human that knows everything potentially. I don't know. Like, who's going to be their human ally that knows everything? Because I just, because like I said, that was a big part of charm for a good chunk of the series. Not all of the series, because remember, like, when they had to fake their death situation later in the series, they kind of, like, Daryl wasn't around anymore because he thought that, he knew they weren't dead because he saw them leaving, but they were disguised as other people. So it's like, okay, so I know, but they never really called on him anymore for the rest of the series. So, so it's kind of like, okay, so who's going to be that human character for them? Will it be Galvin? That would definitely make things between him and Macy better. And so once again, like, he's not, like, pushing her away with that seal and everything. So we'll see. And also, like, how do you go about saving Harry, the Sarkana situation, also the Parker situation in front of him? There is a lot of complicated things going on right now, and I'm very interested to see where all of this takes us going into the next episode. Sally will be waiting just a little bit because the show is returning on January 20th, so I'm very excited to see what happens when the show comes back. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.